Trinidad and Tobago is above Venezuela, northeast part of the South American continent. Construction group, and we had a Bible school group. You're getting ready to watch a short video on that. Some of you can come all the way down to this end. If you'll notice in the front, we range in age from 17 up to 72. So it was really a wonderful experience. These individuals did a terrific job. The music that you'll hear in the video is the same music that they were singing and performing in their church service.
Number 299, praise the Lord, my heart with his love is beaming. I am a child of God. And we are children of God this morning, amen? Praise the Lord, hallelujah. Hymn number 299, a child of God. Praise the Lord, my heart with his love is beaming. I am a child of God. Praise the Lord, my life of my is beaming. I am a child of God. I am a child of God. I am a child of God. Praise the Lord. You may have your seats. Hallelujah.
All I have
First speaker is going to be Julie Williamson. She's going to talk about the Vacation Bible School part of it. And then Richard Williams will come and talk about the constructive part.
Our mantra for this whole trip, with every question that was asked, our response from Glenn would be flexible. And we found that that was the case. When we went down to do our Bible school, we had our plan. We thought we knew what we wanted to do. We got down there, and what we found was a very well-organized group that was conducting Bible school, and we were there to help. And that looked different for each of the 4 age groups that were there. We met not in the church because they were redoing the floor in the main church, but we met in the community center that was up the street from the church. That building and that room that we were in was probably smaller than our fellowship hall. And one of those days we shared it with a plumbing class. So there were 4 Bible school groups going on, separated only by plywood boards. So it was a challenge to try to listen and hear with the accents that were there, but we made it. Like I said, help looked different for each group. I worked with the elementary age. Lake and Sydney worked with the kindergarten and under, and I know they did a lot of singing and games with them. For my part, it was more games, and they let me do the crafts that we had brought, and I think the older group probably did some of those too with the games. Like I said, it was a challenge because they speak English, but it's a really different form of English with a very thick accent. I didn't particularly find the kids there to be needy. I think they were very well loved. Most of them seemed to have the support of a good home, and they seemed to be a little more curious, really, than needy. A few things that impressed, I think, all of us is phones weren't out. Even kids in elementary school here now have phones and are distracted. That didn't happen. I didn't get any disrespect, and I say that as a parent myself. I know, but there was no back talking from those children, so it was very enjoyable to teach kids. And they also had a real willingness and a desire to participate. We're talking about kids from age 3 years up to 18. And we can start that sometimes with some of our kids, and you know, you do that at home with your own, where they go, I don't want to do that, and we didn't have that. Those kids were willing and eager to participate in anything that we did. They did do it on their own time. We call it Trinity time. If something was supposed to start at 3, people trickled in between 3 and 3:30, and that's just the way that it is, and we had to get used to that. But even the Sunday morning for church, Pastor Bola was coming out of the shower with the towel on at 10 o'clock, and church was supposed to start at 10, so we were kind of like, don't we go? We don't know what to do. It wasn't much different for our final rally with the Bible school on Sunday. It was supposed to start at 3, and we passed the church at 3:10, and he said, those kids are too early. What are they doing there? I was like, okay. So, but the rally was a lot of fun. All the parents were invited. The people in the church were invited as well. And all the age groups performed something special. They also did all their worship songs, which were great and not a lot different than what our kids do. We were able to fix treat bags for the kids with some kind of toys, candy, and things that we had taken, as well as give out devotionals and Gideon Bibles to all those kids. The parents were very appreciative, and it was good to get to meet them. The women who taught with us as well had opportunities to open up to those of us that they worked with, and the one that I worked with was the preschool teacher there at the school, or at the church, and she teaches downstairs in the school, 15 kids in a room that's not really adequate. but a lot of those women who taught also provided us with exceptional meals that were filling and different. We had a lot of curry, we had a lot of chickpea and potato soup, roti, and then we were introduced to bacon shark, which was, I think, most people's favorite. A couple of things stuck out for us. You saw one of the last slides up there was our driver. We always ask, why did we go? Why do you go and who's it for? And most people will tell you you're going to get more out of it than the people that you go thinking you're going to serve. And that was the case. Our maxi taxi driver was named Sham, and he spent a lot of time with us. Sham had a very colorful background. He was raised in a Hindu family, started studying the Bible with Rastafarians at the age of 13, and became a Christian. He had conversations with all of us, almost all of us individually, that opened up quite a bit of his life to us. And he needed that. And after you had those conversations with him, you found out he needed it as much as you did. But John doesn't have a lot of self-esteem, but he's a very talented man and a very loving man. We hope to have him here next October. He's trying to work on that, so that you all can meet him. But he's very special. He's a great artist. He shared some of his art with Lake Sydney and Connor, who all got to bring pictures home. And I'll be glad to show you those. But he doesn't feel it, and we need to pray for him. We need to pray that he knows that we love him. I talked to him this morning on Facebook because we introduced him to Facebook and Dairy Queen Blizzards. And he introduced us to a lot more, and I think we probably got the better end of that deal. But the second thing that was probably stuck out to me the most as far as the Bible school part was something Joan said. We did our worship with the kids, and if you work with the kids, you're used to getting up, you sing with them, you do your motions, you do that. And Joan shared with us that she was brought up in a Roman Catholic family, and that was the first time that she realized that Jesus laughed and was happy, and that he could be happy, and that we could be happy when we're singing. So I thought about the hymn of There's Joy in the Lord, and there definitely was, and I'm glad she saw it. Thank you.
As you all can see, this is my fourth mission trip. My first one with this bunch. And you see how emotional we get. Because when we went, we didn't know what we was going to see. We didn't know what we was going to feel. We didn't know what we was going to hear. But every member up here I knew of. But every member up here now I know. And that's the whole purpose of the mission, is fellowship. As far as the construction side of it, as they said, be flexible. But when we got down there, of course, Bo and his crew didn't have the forward prepped yet. And he was feeling down about it. Then when he found out that none of us was a professional tile layer, and that's what he wanted. Uneven floors, it was more than a task that we can handle. So he left out to go try to find a professional tile layer. So us men sort of, looked around, seen what was done, seen how they do it. It's not how we do it, it's how they do it. And so we grabbed the grinder and done a little foot square. He came back and we asked him, he said, what do you like about it? What do you don't like about it? And he said, that looks great. He said, you just don't have to cut it as deep. So us 8 guys tag teamed that floor. We only had 3 grinders and 8 guys. So as I said, we tag teamed it. And when he come back, he seen that all this stuff was getting done. And I could see in him his emotions were rising. Because what I shared with the group the last night is not about the tithe. This mission is not about the tithe. This mission is about helping a pastor that has a vision for his church and his congregation to help them for his congregation to see it. He was down because his congregation didn't have the floor prep for us. But then all of a sudden, through our efforts, he could start seeing the tile being laid. And as the week went, by the second day, we were done as far as construction, other than helping out the tile layer. Now you got one guy laying tiles and 8 guys watching over his shoulder. He was one nervous trinidad. But we got, and his name was Peter. And, I mean, he had some stories. So that's what it was about, the relationship. But where it all came together for me was that Sunday night as Peter was finishing up. I think Glenn and maybe, I don't know where Jeff or Cecil, we was all sitting with Pastor Boa. And he said, I want to thank you. He says, no, we didn't get all the tile laid and it won't get laid before you leave. He said, but my congregation got to see tile on the floor. So they physically got to see the vision of their church. And he said that the men, after the service that Sunday, the men come to me. They finally got it. And he said, now they're talking about what they need to do to the roof, what they need to do to the wall. That's what that mission was about. And, and that's what I shared with the group that last night, because some of us felt like we were getting, especially on the construction side, that we were getting defeated because we didn't finish the tile. But that's not what it was about. And now, I think we got reports the tile's been finished. And we don't go down there. And we don't go to any mission trip to do it for them. We go down there to be a servant and a helping hand. And now, it's their church. It's not our church. This whole mission trip with this church, when I started, Pastor Henry, that was his vision for us to go on mission trips. That was his vision for us to go out in the community. We're here now ready for another pastor. And that pastor's going to have a vision. I know 15 people here, and those that went on mission trips before are ready to grasp that vision. And we need to go into it with all our heart. And we need to show our love for who God sent us. So I encourage you, church, let's see the vision. Let's see the vision in all of us. You can't disqualify yourself. The hardest worker we had, the whole bunch, was the oldest one. He outworked us all. None of us were professional tile layers, but the tile got laid. We even had to do concrete. None of us was professional concrete, but it got poured. So that's what I'm encouraging, church. If God puts it on your heart to go on a mission, go. Because I know there's not a person in here that doesn't want to visit the place that Julie just visited. That heart-wrenching, that pouring out. And I promise you, if you go, you can pour it out and Jesus Christ will fill it up. Thank you.
Hello.
Okay. I want to give you a little back break of, we started back in March. We kind of got a late start on the mission trip. Glenn and I, Glenn, you come back here for a second. And, we really had a lot to do, and Glenn was very, very good at coordinating all our events. When you look at this team, it wasn't a lot of things done behind the clouds. Everything was done. And we worked hard to raise money, and as it worked out, with having to get some extra help down there, everything we did, everything we accomplished was needed. So God pretty much knew what we needed. One of the stories that I think the whole group would like to relay, when you go to a third world country, you're subject to have to live the way they do in that country. One of the advantages that we have, that we take advantage, that we really don't know, is water. There were 10 staying with Pastor Bola and his wife and his family, and there were 5 of us in a host home. And at 4 o'clock, I think the second morning, they ran out of water. Pastor Bola got up. Now, they have big black, what do you call them, Glenn? Tanks to gather water. So then, it was, 10 of them. All the women were there, and some of the husbands. But, Pastor Bola got up at 4 a.m. trying to figure out what he's going to do for water. Started running around. And what he did was, because it was so important to the people in that area, that one neighbor, hooked a hose to his tank and ran into the next neighbor, who then ran water to the next tank, which is Pastor Bola. So there was a transference of water. When we go to flush the motor or get a glass of water, you have an advantage that the people in these countries don't have. So the water is very scarce. So, or healthy water, let's say it that way. So, in looking at this team, one of the things you have to understand from Glenn's point and mine is this is a tremendous team. And we, as coordinators of this trip, want you all to know and understand how special these people are. And we'd like for you to join us with a round of applause to these people and thanking them and everything that they do. One of the other things we'll tell is the waiting is over, it's soon to be stopped. The pastor will be up in just a second. Glenn and I, just so you'll know where the progress of the St. Charles Church of God is, we talked to Pastor Bola this morning, team, and he first wanted to express his love for you all and appreciation for you all being there and everything you all did. Today is the first day that they're holding church with the church completely tiled, and they're very excited. Pastor Bola was on his way. He took time to call us to make sure that you all knew and understand how much he loves and appreciates each and every one of you. So thank you all very much for that. Anything else, Lynn? Okay, team, you all can disperse. Okay, K through 5, I've got several announcements, and I hope I remember them all. K through 5, follow Chris out. He'll take you to where he's going to take you all. Everybody else stays.
Come if you want.
So the wait is soon to be over. Dr. Gary Patton's going to come. His message is on waiting, so this has probably been a good sermon for you. I'd ask Dr. Patton to come and give him a round of applause as we welcome him.
Thank you. Well, folks, what you have seen today is the products, the life of the church. You have seen a reach from your church to foreign soil, and I hope that encourages you. It's encouraging to me to see it. And then you've also seen your young praise team up here, and you better keep your eye on them because I will take them with me. I've got places to preach after we finish here in some months that they probably need to go with me, so keep your eye on them. I really liked what you all did today. Great job. Great job. that's awkward. Think about the times when you have asked the Lord for something, and that's what you got, and more of it. That silence, that moment when it seems like something should happen and it doesn't. This is not really a psychological concept I'm talking to you about today. It's actually a very spiritual one. The Bible, to your amazement, does talk a lot about waiting. Isaiah tells us that those that wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. Psalm 27 tells us that we are to wait on the Lord and be strong. So if you struggle to find something that you'd like to study in the Bible, I would point you in the direction of waiting. Get a good concordance and look up the word waiting, and you will probably be surprised at how many references there are and how often the Bible talks about waiting. We, of course, know that there was a long day of waiting between the time of Jesus' death and the time of his resurrection, and during that Saturday, there was nothing but waiting. Probably silence. Disciples hidden away in fear of their lives, waiting. So I use that to sort of set the stage for your life this last week and maybe your life this coming week, because there are things that really matter to you and things that you're concerned about, things that you've probably been praying about, and you find what I did just a moment ago. God doesn't seem to respond. Doesn't mean he's not responding, but it means we're in the moment of waiting. We're in the time of waiting. And the passage I'm going to read to you today does not specifically mention waiting, but the next psalm does. Psalm 10 begins with, Lord, don't just do nothing. Don't be silent. So often you find David so exasperated, so concerned, and probably even, let's just be real honest, probably even annoyed. Lord, why are you so quiet? Why are you so passive? What's going on? Why are you so still? Lord, do you realize life is happening down here? Do you realize that critical things are hanging in the balance, and it appears as though, Lord, you're doing nothing? So in that context, I want you to have something that you can use for your lives this week, because the same thing may happen, and probably has happened, as you have waited to see what the Lord would do. And at least it appeared, and maybe appears now, that the Lord is doing nothing. We're coming back to Psalm 9, but as I refer to Psalm 10, it says, Why hast thou stood so far off, O Lord? So let's go back to Psalm 9. The Lord also will be a stronghold for the oppressed, stronghold in times of trouble. And those that know thy name will put their trust in thee, for thou, O Lord, hast not forsaken those that seek thee. Sing praises to the Lord who dwells in Zion. Declare among his people his deeds. For he who requires blood remembers them. He does not forget the cry of the afflicted. Be gracious to me, O Lord. Behold my affliction from those who would hate me. Thou who dost lift me up from the gates of death, that I may tell all of thy praises, that in the gates of the daughter of Zion I may rejoice in thy salvation. So we sort of get a template there of how God has evidently been quiet and waiting, and then also how God responds, and we have to navigate that place in between. We have to somehow figure out a way to get through that with our faith intact, but also the practicality intact. I need help from the Lord, and it doesn't seem to be coming. I have prayed for this several times, and I seem to get no answer. Lord, why? That seems to be the poignant question. Why? And it's pretty easy for us to deal with waiting when we gather here, because here we have each other's support, we have each other's company, we have each other's encouragement. But it's outside of here where we have been waiting and waiting. So let me just tell you a few things about waiting, and then what I think the Bible instructs us to do as we can do this and do it well. Not necessarily easily, but we can do it well. The first thing is that waiting seems contrary to our nature. I don't know why it's that way with us. Certainly the Lord must know why it's that way with us, but try to teach a 2-year-old to wait, or a 10-year-old, or a 42-year-old. It just seems to go against our grain. It's contrary to how we tend to perform things. We get aggravated with traffic that moves slow. We get a little frustrated when we have to slow down through the drive-through window at your favorite fast food restaurant. Like, what's taking so long? I don't have the full explanation as to why it's contrary to our nature, but maybe it's because of the rapid sophistication that we live in, the technology that we live in. We're not used to having to wait, so it's probably gotten worse. But it seems to be contrary to the human nature to have to postpone, to have to put something off, to have to wait. We just don't like that. So that sort of sets the stage as to what the dilemma is about that we're in. But here's where it gets even worse. Not only does waiting seem contrary to who we are and how we do things, but waiting distorts time. Time gets all messed up when we're having to wait. As you knew, I was in the hospital for several years working, and we would have reports from people who would say things like, I waited for that physician for over an hour. And the nurse would say, well, we just called the physician 15 minutes ago, and they got here 10 minutes after that. Now, that doesn't mean the person was wrong or lying. It means that time got distorted for them. When you're waiting for your physician to arrive, I guess 25 minutes can feel like an hour. Because when things are pressing in on us and things are not easy for us and things are having to sort of get put off that really need to happen, time just seems to elongate. Time seems to be projected out there further than it really is. That affects the soul too, friends. Let's put it in that context of people that you're praying for, and you've prayed many times for healing, you've prayed for their salvation, you've prayed for something, and there's that waiting thing going on, and it distorts time. You feel like you've been praying forever for this, and probably have not, but it certainly does feel like that. Distorts our time, contrary to our nature, and so it's no wonder that sometimes we find ourselves just sort of categorically saying, I can't do it. Don't feel alone in that. Don't feel as though that you are a failure or that you're the one who is not strong enough to do that. David did that. Psalm 10 said it so well. Why are you standing so far away? Why don't you come near, Lord? Now in Psalm 9, he was refreshed and he was rejuvenated because he knew all the good things that God had done. But something must have happened between 9 and 10, and he's back to the waiting issue again. And it sort of happens. It teeters and totters with us. It's sort of like that childhood playground toy that goes up and down. One minute we feel like we're really able to do this, and the next minute we're not so sure that we can. It's distorted time. It's against our nature. We feel like we can't do it. And here's some of the emotions that happen. Things that I'm saying that you can probably say, I'm glad he said that because I was afraid it was just me. I'm glad he said that's what happens in waiting because I thought it was just me being fussy. Thought it was just me not being faithful. It's very easy to become frightened over the future when you're waiting. Probably enough said. Won't even give you all the examples of that. But when you're waiting for something to happen and you're looking out there anticipating that it hopefully will come pretty soon, it's easy to get frightened as you have to wait. It's easy to get frustrated. I guess we could go ahead and use the word angry. It's not a bad emotion. God gave us the capacity for it. But we're angry because we see all of these injustices going on around us. We see people that seem to be doing well. They don't have to wait. Why don't they have to wait? I remember seeing in a parking lot one time a little sign that said this: no parking here except Bob. Now, whoever Bob was, I'm not sure, but Bob got to park where nobody else gets to park. I would have transposed that into this message and saying that everybody has to wait, except it seems like there's some people that don't. They don't have to wait. Why don't they have to wait for anything? Why do they just seem to skate on through, as we sometimes refer to it? Why do they have the easy way? They don't wait for anything. It's easy to get angry about that appearance at least of it. It's easy to feel hurt that there's injustices and people have maybe magnified your waiting or weren't very considerate or compassionate towards you as you went through your waiting time. You know, when you've been waiting and somebody says, well, hang in there. Hang in there. Interesting comment to tell me to hang in there. You're not going through the waiting. I am. So I guess I would just edify the church to be careful of what we say to those who are going through their elongated times of anticipation. They're waiting. Let's not tell them to just, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Hang in there. It'll be okay. Dr. C.S. Lewis made a very profound comment one time as he was going through some arduous times. This prolific author that we've probably all read his works, here's what he said one time, and he had the nicest way. It's just the nicest way of telling people to shut up you've ever heard. Now, he didn't dare say it that way, but that would be my translation of it. It was a very profound, it was a very philosophical way of telling people to hush. He said, if you come to me in my pain with easy answers, I shall say, you do not understand. If you come to me in my pain with easy answers, I shall say, you do not understand. You see where I get my version, shut up? You don't understand. We get hurt. And then, of course, we get confused about God's will because everybody talks about God's will. We believe that we have a will of our God to follow, but we get confused about that because I'm frightened, I'm angry, I'm hurt, I'm waiting in all of this. Now I'm confused. I don't know. I don't know what move to make next. I don't know what to do or what not to do next. So I've just sort of laid the dilemma before you so that, first of all, you don't feel so alone in it. Does anybody understand? Yes, somebody understands. A guy can get up and tell you about it. Maybe Gary Patton's lived through it too. So I don't want you to feel alone in that. I don't want you to feel as though it's just you, it's just your problem, deal with it. No. All the things I've described, if they sound similar to you, that means somebody else has gone through it because I don't know your story. I don't know what you've been through. And if I've just described your story, that means it's not just you. If it's not just you, hopefully you have some encouragement and some company with that, some support with that. But this is exactly where Satan starts to move in, bringing it back to what David probably experienced, what we would experience. This is exactly what Satan can do with us because what begins to transpire there is this. Again, just for those that may be new, is he checking text? No, I'm watching my time. Just to kind of give you some reassurance right now so you don't have to wait too long. He's surely not up there checking text messages. No, I'm checking my time for you. Here's what happens when we put all these emotions together, when we put all these thoughts together in terms of the waiting experience, and there's probably right now some pretty significant waiting experiences happening in this sanctuary, in these lives, in Trinidad, in these young people as they go to school, everybody that's been on this platform today, probably some pretty significant waiting times happening. But Satan wants to start to manipulate that and play with that and toy with that. And here's what he might say to you. If anything was going to change, don't you think it would have changed by now? Wow, what a zinger from the demonic places where the imps of hell abide. That one can hit hard. Because he sounds like he's seemingly so reasonable with us. He's seemingly being so philosophical with us. Well, if your situation was going to change, I mean, if it were, don't you think it would have certainly changed by now? And we start to think that, and we start to dwell on that, and the answer is, well, yeah, it probably should have changed by now. If something was going to change, don't you think it would have changed by now? And we start to get not only frightened and confused and all the rest, but we start to get exhausted. How much longer can I wait? If something's going to change, don't you think it would have changed by now? Not necessarily, because church, I bring you some good news. Thank God, literally, thank God we're not in that group that was waiting. But let me tell you why something doesn't necessarily have to change by now in order to change. Some of you that have taught Sunday school know this. Some of you that have studied the Word in great detail know this. But here's something that we can all hold on to today. Does anybody know, and you probably do, the span of time that God's people had to wait from when the last prophet spoke until Christ came? 400 years. 400 years when God did not speak. Was he mad? No. Was he just testing them, trying to make them suffer? No. God had it fully arranged in his mind, and that's why the New Testament tells us that in the fullness of time. It took 400 years from when the last prophet said it's going to happen, but 400 years later, in the fullness of time, God sent forth his Son. Now let me quickly reassure you, God's not going to make you wait 400 years. But it does give us the principle that God is not governed or concerned or controlled by time. God controls time. Time doesn't control him. And so the control that's happening in your life is being dictated by a Father who loves you. And we'll see that psalm again in just a moment when we close. No, it should not have happened by now. Just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean it's not going to happen. And then the second part of it is this. Well, if nobody's doing anything, we certainly sometimes think they don't care. If we haven't heard from anybody, if nobody's doing anything, then maybe nobody cares. Do not let Satan suggest to you that because nothing is happening, God doesn't care. He very deliberately cares. He very personally cares. And he's doing something now that you cannot see. I'm not trying to predict what that is because I don't know. But having done this for a few years and lived for a few years, I can tell you that God is doing something now that you don't know about and that you cannot see. That's not a panacea just to sort of inflate you and help you and give you a pacifier to hold on to for a while. But we trust that in everything God's done, we've seen it. He's doing something now that we cannot see and we cannot know about. But in the fullness of time, God makes the waiting blossom into something. We've seen what the waiting is like. We've seen how Satan wants to manipulate it and how Satan wants to toy with it and throw it against us. We also need to understand this, though, that it's in this time that our human nature kicks back in. It is very tempting to go to our logic and our own ways of doing things. I appeal to you today, even as I appeal to myself, do not go to your own logic and your own way of doing things just because it's been a waiting time, just because it's been said to you that if it was going to change, it would have changed by now, just because you don't think God cares. Do not use your own logic and your own ways, because those never work out very well in the things of the Spirit. Now, if God directs you, opens a door, gives you opportunity, that's one thing. But to say, well, I'll fix it then. If nobody's going to do anything, I'll do it. Please be patient and wait through that. David had to. That's why he said, Lord, how long? How long will we have to do this? He didn't know. But it's always dangerous for us to try to assume that we can take on the magnitude of what God knows and say, well, I'll just take care of it myself. But if Satan can lure us into, sort of entice us into that, well, why don't you just take charge? Why don't you just go ahead and do it yourself? I would. Certainly doing something's better than doing nothing. No, sometimes doing something is not better than doing nothing. There's a time just to be still and know that He is God. Be still. Oh, friends, I hope you understand today what I've been sharing with you, that I know it's not easy. I'm not trying to give you an easy prescription. But as we're together here to bolster our faith, trust in that. Be still. Church, be still as you wait for pastoral leadership. Ministry is continuing. These young people up here today, you've been to Trinidad. Ministry is continuing. You're here. Things are happening. Be still, though, and know that I am your God. He has not forgotten the First Church of God in Mount Sterling, Kentucky. He has not walked away from you to make you do this by yourself. He has not turned a deaf ear to you to say it doesn't matter. Be still and know that He is God. And then we get to a very, very powerful verse. It's a verse that helps us to understand this, that since waiting is such a tempestuous time, since waiting is such a difficult and arduous time, wouldn't it also be a great place for God to build us up and strengthen us? Wouldn't that time of journey through the difficulty be the perfect place for God to build your endurance and make you strong and give you spiritual maturity? Anybody who's been through any sort of physical training knows that it's when you have to press through that you get stronger. I sometimes tell people that I lift weights, and the reason I tell you that is because I know you can't tell by looking at me, and I want you to know. He doesn't look like a weightlifter. Exactly, that's why I told you. But all that happens in the gym is you tear the muscle down. You don't build muscle in the gym, you exhaust muscle in the gym. The fortification, the rejuvenation of the muscle comes later. When you're going through the difficult time is the perfect chance for God to say, now, I have got you in such a position to grow. I have got you in such a place to be magnified and to learn spiritual truth and for your family to get stronger. Now I've got you there. The place where you can become what you've never dreamed you could be. Now you're there, you're waiting for that. Since it's such a time that can tear us down, it also has to be such a powerful point to build us up. Here's something I would want you to write down in your notes if you're doing that. The very thing that Satan uses to tear you down will be the exact same thing that God uses to build you up. The very time, waiting, doubt, the very thing that Satan will use to tear you down, your God will use those very same things to build you up. If you wait. If you wait. And so, the passage I mentioned to you was contained in the scripture that I read. Those that know thy name, O Lord, will put their trust in you. For you have not forsaken those that seek you. Those that know your name, O Lord, will put their trust in you. For you have not forsaken those who seek you. A father and his little boy would go for walks every evening. And as they would go for walks, their journey took them past a toy store. And in going past the toy store, the little boy would race ahead. And there he would press his little fingers and his nose against the pane of the window, and he would see if it was still there. Is it still there? Oh, it's still there. It's still there. The little army set. It had jeeps, and it had little soldiers with guns. It had little tents. It's still there. No other little boy had been able to get it. The army set is still there. And he'd whirl to his father and say, Daddy, I want that army set so bad. He'd say, I know you do. I know you do. And you're going to get it. And he'd brighten, and his dad would say, you're going to get it when you least expect it. No. The next night, they would go for their walk, and he would race ahead again. It's probably not there. It's probably gone by now. Some other dad has probably bought it for his little boy. He'd race ahead, and once again, little fingerprints against the window. The army set is still there. Daddy, I want that army set so bad. I just want that army set. I know you do. Honey, I know you want that army set, and you're going to get it, and you're going to get it when you least expect it. Day after day, I won't even monopolize the time. You know you'll have the routine every day. Daddy, I know, son, I know you want it. And I promise you, you're going to get it. You're going to get it when you least expect it. And finally, he'd had enough. And the response was, well, Daddy, I'm least expecting it right now. We're going to have a song. And the reason we smile and laugh about that is because we can come to our Father and we can say, Abba, Abba, Father. Lord, you know I've prayed. You know I've waited. Gary's been teaching us about desperation. He's been teaching us about hope. He's now taught us about waiting. Next week, we're going to learn about joy. Thank God we're finally going to get there, friends. Next week, we're going to talk about joy, so be sure to be back. But there could be something in the soul right now that says, Father, I'm trying. I'm really going to keep trying to wait. I'm glad Gary said what he did because I'm exhausted. I'm frustrated. I'm scared. But I will put my faith in you because I know that you will not forsake those that trust you and that seek you. Honestly, Father, I'm least expecting it right now. I'm about to give up. I don't want to. I'm trying hard not to, but I'm about ready to give up. Lord, help me not to give up. Fortify me, strengthen me, encourage me. If I have some waiting to go through, help me wait a little longer. And take that passage with you. I want you to hear it again. Those that know thy name will put their trust in you. Because, Lord, you have not forsaken those that seek you. But stand.